people are doing such awesome and innovative things that they are very willing to share their best practices and what's working and what isn't. And in this world where typically you're that smaller team, you're that agile front of line, and there isn't a playbook for what we're doing, it's just such a great resource and a comforting place to go because people are pounding their heads the same exact way that you are. So we are out there, just reach out and people are willing to help.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, we have Michelle Campanella, who is the Senior Director of Revenue Enablement at Azul, a leading provider in Java-based solutions for the modern cloud enterprise. With extensive experience in driving revenue growth and optimizing sales enablement processes, Michelle plays a crucial role in ensuring that Azul's go-to-market strategies align with the company's ambitious growth objectives. Her leadership in this area is key to Azul's success in the competitive Java and cloud services market, which is why we're excited to have her on the show to pick her brain. Michelle, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much. Awesome introduction.
Thanks. To get things started here, Michelle, I'd love to get from you maybe just a couple of minutes of some of your history, where you came from and how you landed at in the role that you're in at Azul.
Yeah, great. So thanks for the opportunity, first and foremost. Love to be able to contribute and learn from others as well. So I like to say that I grew up at Verizon Wireless, where I learned the world of call center and corporate and really found my love for training and development and learned the B2B world. From there, really immersed myself in owning their sales onboarding process. So learning all of the methodologies that were on the market. From there, transitioned over to a sales methodology organization that specialized in developing SaaS applications to drive opportunity management, coaching, and then spend some time there as a startup organization, driving their development and growth within their organization of selling those solutions, onboarding new sales methodologies within an organization, change management, right? And then kind of wearing that hat that evolved into sales enablement, if you will. So found my way to Rimini Street, which had a really interesting value proposition, and spent some time there, developing out their onboarding programs and scaling the business, bringing up a new product line, and then found my way over to Azul with a similar value proposition. But again, in that startup mode, we're looking to develop an onboarding program, helping their folks accelerate and ramp to get quicker results from the sales team as they expand the business.
That's a very colorful experience. There's a lot of different places there that I'm sure you've kind of cut your chops, as it were. In terms of your evolving role, I wonder if you could share some of the things you kind of picked up along the way that have really allowed you to find your, I guess, approach to the way that you're helping Azul in maximizing their sales efficiencies and effectiveness in their efforts.
Yeah, I would say agility would be first and foremost, right? The world is constantly changing. What used to be, that you could pull a team out for 2 weeks at a time to really pull them through some in-depth training and development to ensure that they've really mastered a skill, you've got minutes now to really get in front of them, get some attention, and hopefully stick with them. And so, really staying on the cusp of what is cutting edge, what's happening in the industries, what are my colleagues doing, what's working and what's not, so that I'm not having to recreate the wheel, if you will, but that I'm able to leapfrog off of what my colleagues are doing and what's going to work best for my organization, but not sticking to the traditional solutions of always thinking that 1 + 1 will equal 2, because that's just not the case in this world. So being open to the new technologies, right? That means just staying abreast of things myself, and willing to make some of those mistakes, but the agility to be constantly reviewing your processes and your impact and make changes on the fly.
being flexible in your role, I guess, has afforded you opportunities where others who are more rigid wouldn't necessarily have seen that. And I see how that can serve the higher goal here that you're aiming at, which is to kind of improve those efficiencies and build that business up longer. And I didn't catch how long have you been with Azul now?
So Azul will be here almost 3 years.
3 years. Okay. So maybe if you could, over those 3 years, I'm sure your role has kind of evolved. How have things changed from the time that you started to some of the work that you're doing now?
Great question. So when I first joined the organization, it was just standing up what is enablement here at Azul, right?
Mm,
So what does it look like to have a baseline of knowledge across the organization? So my charter was twofold. One, develop a repeatable, scalable onboarding process that will quickly scale our reps to produce. And secondarily, for everybody that's already here, let's get all to an equal playing ground so we know that everybody's got the knowledge and skills to move forward as a single organization. And so partnering with across the organization to get my subject matter experts aligned, right? Really instilling what is training. So it's not just, a blurb or an hour long presentation of information, but there's an exchange of ideas, right? There's an opportunity to apply and really feedback and having that full loop to understand. And so the implementation of certification processes, right? So taking a very tenured sales team that's been here for 10 years and having them go through just a value prop certification on a
mm,
product they've been selling for that long, while I took a lot of your kicking and screaming through, it was such a great learning process for us to hear, the different scale of mastery, approaches, flavors, and it allowed us to start to build some of those playbooks. So in the beginning, it was just kind of building that baseline. Once we got to a baseline, then it was sustaining, right? So now, how do I pull back the wheels on how much training I'm offering? How do I start to look at it from a role based perspective, right? So, really being strategic about what time I'm taking from my AEs. And so, instead of having, one training every single week, I'm now at two training offerings a month, but it's very specific role based. So, you know that it's time well spent for yourself. Um, Pulling together now, we've got process to find. So before it was all about just getting the product information out, but not so much how you should do your job. And so the job has now evolved into more of those boot camp solutions, right? Where you're doing day in the life, actual application, role plays, so that you're testing out the knowledge. So it's getting more mature from that perspective. I've also been able to introduce now some technology that helps me scale and start to do things autonomously. So I've implemented HighSpot as an example. So I can push out content, I can see engagement, I can create training and assessment work around it, so that I know what the learning looks like. They can submit video pitches back. And it's a global process. I'm a team of one, so things need to be scalable, but I'm able to give coaching independently to everybody within the organization within a matter of hours. And so that's kind of how the role has evolved. I've pulled back from doing a lot of the global enablement, if you will, and really doing more personalized one on one tracks now that I've got more tools and can see the engagement of where folks are at and where they're needing support.
so there's a kind of like a natural curve here of like, okay, there's some things that we need to address right away. Once that's kind of put down, then we can start looking at how we can systemize things. Now that we have a system, let's look at how we can scale this. So it looks like there's a very clear path from that kind of beginning to, how you've evolved now. I wonder what types of things or um, you know, what wisdom you picked up along the way in some of your early career that kind of influences the work that you're doing now.
A lot of bad experiences form that, right?
Right. Right.
So, as an employee going through any kind of training yourself, you're learning what's good, what works, what doesn't work. I guess in my experience, I started off at help desk. So it was always kind of my niche, if you will, to break it down and make things simple. And how do I
Mm,
package that in a simple way for other people? And so that's kind of how I see my role, right? I demystify those complex things into very simple, palatable processes and bite-sized chunks. And so it's really been along the way. Um, Understanding the people side in terms of how do people consume information, how do they like to learn, um, what are the ways to best package that information, right? Understanding the change process and cycles and what is change management, and how do you again best approach that,
mm,
and then learning business acumen, right? And starting to really understand when you have that seat at the table, understanding the priorities from an executive perspective and translating the pieces and parts that I'm doing into that business perspective. So, how am I helping them shift productivity? How am I helping them build efficiencies, right? It's not just another training that we're doing, but it's a pivotal part of the organization in terms of just aligning everything. So, being able, I guess, throughout my career to understand strategy and how the team is working together, cut my teeth and make mistakes along the way of initiatives and approaches that work and don't.
mm.
Really proving your value and getting quick wins so that you've got a champion team behind you and you've got the credibility with your leadership team, to take those risks sometimes, and be able to approach the the initiative. Also, just being able to work cross functionally. This is I am the catalyst. I am the bridge to the business, right? And so, understanding all of the various roles that impact the ecosystem and how they play, what their priorities are. And again, that people part of it, to understand that dynamic and then really try to make things a win for everybody. So it's helping be that negotiator, right? I'm not always going to be able to push every initiative I want, but I've got to be able to sell things, based on what people are looking for and what's going to help them look better within the organization as well.
There's the thing that I picked up on about you, Michelle, right away was your ability to communicate clearly. And I see that being a kind of a cornerstone in the the work that you do, the knowledge and experiences that you've kind of acquired along the way in your journey, and how that has helped you to, as you said, to simplify some of these ideas, help make them very simple for people to understand, but then giving them the power and ability to be empowered to make decisions and do the right thing. And so I'd love to get your perspective on how that kind of style of, simple communication has helped you shape the customer experience or the customer journey for Azul.
It's bringing back that mindset of simplicity, right?
Mm,
So when the Azul is a 20-year-old startup, I'd like to say, right? You've got all of this wonderful engineering brain trust that has been able to grow the organization. But they've got blinders on because they've been in that technical world for 20 plus years. This is just simple as pie to them. And, when you're making these types of sales in a business development, business to business worlds, you're working with other people where this is not what they're thinking about 24/7, right? So you've got to be able to translate the value of this product, this solution, to a business, but in business terms. And traditionally, when you've got a technical solution, you're hiring technical salespeople who also speak very technically, but you're not selling to a person who is technical. And so, how do you translate that conversation and make it a people conversation, right? There's a business problem at the end of the day. People don't necessarily know that they have a software problem and they're running, X megabytes slower than they should be for, you know, 2 seconds and the impact that that might have on transactions. But
mm.
if you start to talk about, I can probably bring you in, another 10% of transactions over, X amount of time, that is going to start to percolate and push some decision making. So being able to connect the dots and help people come back to people sell to people. And so how do we translate this information into something that they can, process and prioritize in their own world?
So how does that influence the marketing? Because there's this really complicated idea or all these like systems and tools, and like you said, the technical guys are really good at the technical stuff, and if you've been there 20 years, it's really easy.
Yeah,
But for somebody who's my whole life has never had to do with anything that you do, and so when I need you, I don't even know what words to use to communicate
that's
with
right.
you. I don't know what my problem really is, and so I imagine that poses a bit of a challenge in terms of how you approach the marketing engine in Azul.
That's absolutely the case. And so there's two kind of product sets, if you will, that we're going to market with. And one really addresses it's a pricing concern, right? We can do a same service for 70% less. That's an easy conversation to have and start to translate. But where it gets tighter, to your point, is having that more technical solution about how we help fine tune and deal with garbage collection and really amplify your ability to perform in the marketplace. And that now comes to really building out good champions within an organization. Right. Being a thought leader in the marketplace to start to translate some of that information. So you don't care about performance necessarily, but what you do care about is on Black Friday, your website froze up for 3 minutes and you lost, how many abandoned carts did you have or who left that and now went and made that purchase on another website because they wanted that special pricing, right? And so how do we start to translate that into the business impact? And it's really, flipping it on its head from that perspective and being able to paint that pain. People aren't going to make a purchase decision, if you will, just because it's cheaper. But if I know that I'm leaving money on the table, that's a lot more painful, if you will, and I'm going to do something about it. And then with the technical sale, it's tough now because that pain may only affect you. Right. So now, how do I make you a champion, a proponent to start to really paint this or help me get to the right people within an organization to start to really amplify why this matters. And so it's coming in with those case studies to say, well, here's why MasterCard uses us and how we're able to help them. And here's how Netflix has improved their experience because of our solutions, right? So they can start to speak to some of their peers and colleagues and not just hear it from us. Those proof points really matter. But it's being that advisor and not the pushy salesperson, right? Let me just educate you as to what the problem is, what other people are doing about it, and how it's helping them. And if that's something that's compelling to you, then let's have a conversation.
There's a very natural approach to it in terms of the way that you communicate it, um, because it seems like it's a prescription, right? Hey, listen, I have a problem and I came to you. You seem to be the person who knows about those problems. So what can we do about this problem? And so does that mean that a lot of your marketing efforts are focused on education or webinars and things like that? Or um, are you more in the avenue of just creating useful content and blogs and things like that for people to search and find?
I would say it's multi-approached, right? So
Okay.
we are not the biggest player in the market. So there's a lot of just getting our name out there and that as a recognition, right?
Mhm.
We're doing a lot around thought leadership and how we're showing up there. We're trying to do a lot of, so we are a key player within the open source community, contributing to how code gets built, what is delivered, and how we're fixing. So you might have a patch that comes out or a release that happens, and there might be a problem. And just given normal cycles, Oracle in the community may not have a solution for up to 6 weeks. Well, we're still working it, and we'll have a patch within 20 to 30 minutes, and we contribute that back to the community. So we are still playing that thought leadership and really helping to drive the Java community forward.
So then I get like not that we're here to air the dirty laundry, but what sorts of challenges come up when you try to create this type of approach to, educating your clients or your customers or your prospects to, kind of bring them in through, it seems like the sheer force of just gravity because of, what the nature of the work that you do.
So it's tough to find the right person to talk to that's
Mm,
going to care enough about the problem to start to work it. Um, it's a very compelling business case for financial services, right? It seems like a no-brainer. If you
mm,
are a trading organization or where you need that fast up, time cycles really matter. Um, if you are a SaaS organization, makes a lot of sense in terms of your infrastructure. And if you're looking to do a cloud cost optimization play, makes a lot of sense. If you're looking to reduce tech stack, right, we can help with that as well. Um, but it- it's tough to get in front of the right person. It's tough to get the credibility because we're not the Oracle, right? That has that name brand recognition across the organization.
right.
With our newest product, Intelligence Cloud, it's a brand new market vertical for us to enter because now we're talking about a security solution. And so entering to that space is not, it's not, it's brand new for us and it's not simple. So cracking into that, we just got our first flagship, customer for that. And so now we can start to really move the market there. But we have knocked on a lot of doors that aren't working. Again, it's not compelling necessarily to say you're going to save money, right? If we all wanted to save money, we'd all buy the cheapest television on the shelf. That's not how we operate. There's a reason why there's premium levels and there aren't premium levels. And so it's really building up the business case and then it's prioritizing that this is something that's going to help you. No one got fired for not letting go of Oracle, right? Doing nothing,
Right.
people don't get fired for that. But if you're going to make a change, that's an investment in putting yourself out there. And in today's world, today's economy, that's a risk some people aren't willing to take. And so it's really building up the champions and having the ability to get them comfortable with their own peers in the industry, rather. We've been down this road. We have 100% success rate, and really helping them through that process and educating them.
Yeah, it may be time consuming and a little bit cumbersome, but building relationships seems to be the path forward in the work that you do. And sometimes, you might be barking up the wrong tree, but it doesn't mean that that's necessarily a bad relationship to have because they're going to introduce you to the right people. And
That's exactly right.
yeah, I see that. So in a process like that, and I get this from like I'm a little bit of a nerd in terms of like systemization, right? Like creating steps that are easy to follow, things that you can train for and that sort of thing. How do you first of all, how do you measure what success looks like in a process like that? And then secondarily to that, what's your approach to systemizing that kind of marketing objective?
Yeah, a measurement is always the great question, right? What are the right things to look at? What are the leading and lagging indicators? What can I actually measure given the systems that I have?
Hmm.
And so that's been something that I've really been chasing. As a team of one, you got to pick where you're going to spend your time. So measurement from an onboarding perspective is critical. And for something like that, I've got it built out to not only test out for knowledge, but I'm testing out skill and mastery. So I'm seeing them answer multiple choice questions. I'm seeing them role play, and then I'm actually going into a recorded call within our Copilot system to make sure that they're applying those things and using those coaching scorecards to keep that circle going, right? For every enablement initiative, I don't have the scalability at this point to measure it all, but for the critical ones, there are absolutely checks and measures, right? So again, that multiple choice assessment, or are you filling out the deal registration process correctly? What's being kicked back? And so measuring those pieces and parts, but it's starting up front with the end in mind. So it's understanding the initiatives that we have, and then thinking through what are those key metrics. So, for example, right now we're trying to increase pipeline against one product. So we've got a full training plan that we've implemented. How are we seeing pipeline increase? How fast are the opportunities moving through? What's the deal size? Right? Are we multi-threaded or single-threaded? What was the source of the opportunity? Because that helps us to understand kind of what was the gateway So that helps us with marketing messaging, or if it's Drift or LinkedIn messaging, right? And tune those levers just to continue to learn about the business, because there's so many different avenues for them to come in. And then there's your population of your existing customer base, right? And how are you
Right.
cross selling and upselling and just nurturing so that you don't lose any of those customers, and really taking into account the opportunities there.
Yeah, it's a big job, and there's a lot of moving parts, and trying to kind of glue them all together is
Yeah.
difficult. But I like that idea of starting with the end and kind of working your way back to, okay, where are we currently, and like what can we do to fill in the gaps? I think it's
Yeah.
such um, a sound approach to working through that, and getting a clear picture on how to proceed or how to move forward, and then further to that, how to empower your team to be able to act on your behalf in the situations that they're in. And the role playing and the coaching and the analyzing and metrics, these are all really, really, really important things that if somebody's not implementing that in their business, there could be leaks in your pipelines and things like that. So it seems like you guys got things pretty streamlined, and um, what you've shared so far has been really helpful. I wonder if we could kind of look into the future. What are some of the big goals that are on the horizon? What are you aiming at, and what are you excited about in terms of new tools and technologies that are coming available to you that you might want to be implementing?
I'm sure everybody is saying this, but AI, it is all about AI from a couple different angles. So, one, how does it help me scale? What are the tools and things that I can be doing as a team of one, again, to automate my reporting, right? Get visibility of metrics and scorecards and those kind of things just out of my hands and through systematically. Coaching, how do I coach my reps? Again, smaller team, right? You've got your managers and then myself. But how do you get that one-to-one coaching? So AI is going to help us do that. How do I improve my reps' efficiency and getting them just better and smarter about how they're working and spending their time? AI, in terms of note taking capabilities, right? In terms of just those reminders and deal summaries and all of the functionalities that are out there. So, my big world right now is just trying to learn as much as I can about what's happening. And then what are the baby steps that I can be taking today in my organization to start to introduce the culture to embracing these tools, right? Because it's not just going to be an overnight thing. And so, planning SKO last year. Chat GPT was my absolute best friend in helping me thematically pull together, just some of my presentations, some of the imagery I used, just making it all very cohesive instead of spending hours on my own trying to think about the kitschy little things. It was minutes, right? And then as I now introduce my note taking and call conversational intelligence, as I'm integrating all of those tools with my CRM and my content repository systems, right? All of this is now feeding scorecards up. So it's a beautiful, exciting world when the technology plays well together. And so that's kind of where we're headed next. And so as I partner with each of my vendors, I'm thinking, one, how do I reduce tech stack to keep it seamless and easy for my reps? Where are they going from an AI perspective so I can understand what the benefits are and how they're really going to streamline as I make my decision about reductions. And then just thinking about how folks are going to be working in the future, and what I need to empower them with as we look to the future.
Yeah, it's usually the people on the front line that get the bloodiest in a
Yeah.
battle of trying to bring forward this innovation, new technology, and things like that. So it's very brave and bold of you to be going down that path. But
Maybe.
also the one thing that I picked up on that was really important about that was the consideration for the people down line who have to use these tools on a more consistent and regular basis, and whether or not it's going to be effective in helping them achieve that outcome. And so that's it's really cool to see that you're out here up to that kind of thing, because uh sometimes that's overlooked for the bottom line, or what have you. So really cool that that's what you're up to. Michelle, you've been very generous with your time and your insight, and on behalf of everyone watching and listening, I definitely can tell you I appreciate that. As we kind of wrap things up here, if you could maybe, I wonder if there's any advice that you could offer somebody who's in a similar role to you, who's up to similar things, facing similar challenges. What would that advice be to them?
Find yourself a really good network. Stay close to Sales Enablement Collective or whatever groups that you find that work for you. People are doing such awesome and innovative things that they are very willing to share their best practices and what's working and what isn't. And in this world where typically you're that smaller team, you're that agile front of line, and there isn't a playbook for what we're doing, it's just such a great resource and a comforting place to go because people are pounding their heads the same exact way that you are. So we are out there, just reach out and people are willing to help. You are not alone in this. And there's no right answer to any one problem. There are so many different ways to approach it. So don't be afraid, to take different approaches and try different things.
Really great advice, Michelle. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or perhaps work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, please meet on LinkedIn, reach out to me. I'm happy to start up a conversation and just, keep the connections going and learn from you as well.
Perfect. We'll make sure to link to all that stuff in the show notes so that anybody watching and listening can get in touch with you easily. And on that note, if you want to get in touch with me and my team for any of your marketing needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you in the next.